I've been laughing for a week straight, which is a fan's reaction to Lone selling a very poor 15k first week, which is less than Ian's debut project. Ken Carson fans when he drops the same song for the 54th time. A fan laughing at Ken Carson teasing a snippet from his new album The Experiment, and it's clear he's not experimenting. Look, back in 2022, 2023 and even 2024, Opium were the most hyped up collective and it literally looks like they're about to take over. Destroy Lonely dropped no stylist, and at that point in time that was probably one of the best underground projects we got in a very long time. Then a year later, Ken Carson dropped AGC, a huge mainstream success, sending Opium mainstream. And at one point in time, fans were even saying Ken might even surpass Carti. But I must say, since then it's only really gone downhill. Fans are calling Ken sound boring, and then Destroy Lonely, well, he's literally sending himself back into the underground. So what are some of the issues with Opium right now, and is their future looking as promising as it once was? So firstly, Ken Carson. Now Ken has completely blown up in these past 2 years. Leading up to the release of AGC, Ken had a lot of hype after Freestyle 2 blew up on TikTok, and he had very hyped up snippets such as Jennifer's Body and Killtech. And somehow, AGC would sell 50k first week, just from streams alone. It was insane. That's pretty much the equivalent of like what Carti did from Die Lit, but Carti had insane features on Die Lit. And he even managed to get a Drake cosign. This was of course a huge moment as Ken was now entering the mainstream spotlight. As before this, the only person to touch these numbers was Yeet, and really Ken was now competing for his spot. But now let's talk about Ken's next project, More Chaos. So Ken would actually take a year break, as in 2024 he would only drop the deluxe to AGC, just a couple of extra songs for the fans, which were all actually amazing, as he gave us a mix of different sounds, with one of the songs overseas leading to him getting his first Billboard entry, another huge moment. And even songs like Sydney Sweeney, that's one of his biggest songs now. So with a Great Chaos and the deluxe being such a huge success, a mainstream success, like if you guys actually look at his streams on Spotify, the numbers are insane. I'm not even joking, like half the songs on AGC have like a minimum of like 80 to 100 million streams. It's insane. But anyways, now on to More Chaos. I'll be honest, considering the fact Ken had 2 years to work on this project, it was a letdown. Like I get it, people in the comments are going to be saying, but bro, it's literally called More Chaos. That's the style he was going for. Yes, but that doesn't mean it needs to be a worse and more boring version of AGC. The project didn't really have any purpose. Let me read you some fans' opinions of the project. I like all of Opium and really enjoyed AGC and I Am Music, but damn man, most of these beats sound the same and it seems like Ken lost the ability to put hooks together. He's just talking in like one verse half the time and it's all jumbled. Love the production and energy, but it's missing a lot of. This is a huge step down from AGC. It feels like he hasn't evolved at all since the album. I also think Carti dropping music last month really highlights how uninteresting Ken and the other Opium rappers are compared to him. Carti isn't the most lyrical or technically gifted rapper, but he has so much presence in his songs and his vocal performance that it just makes Ken's verses on here so boring in comparison. That's the thing, Ken had 2 years to bring us something amazing, maybe not new but fresh and good. An evolved sound maybe, but this just sounds like a deep fried version of a Great Chaos. More distorted vocals, darker beats, and of course a beat switch on almost every song. And it just didn't have that same catchiness that AGC did. Like, you know, Jennifer's Body, that's just a banger. Me and My Cup, it's just a banger. Now there is much more from AGC, and I just don't want to sit here and list all of them. But then now that I think of More Chaos, it has only been out for like 6 months, but I can't really name a memorable line or a catchy verse, or you know what I mean, like I can't really name anything from More Chaos. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of great tracks on this project. Trap Jumpin', Lord of Chaos, K-Hole, Live Leak, and then the more melodic songs such as Thanks, Psycho and Inferno. Like it's definitely a decent project. Like I would give it a solid 5 out of 10 if we're giving AGC like a 9 or 10 out of 10, and the rankings are based on albums like In Our Underground kind of niche. But overall it's just a worse version of AGC and a less interesting version of AGC, because even though they're both albums full of rage songs, AGC just has a larger variety. But More Chaos, nothing catchy, nothing fun, nothing that brings me back to listen to it again. Now onto the first week sales, he sold 60k first week, however 10 of those were from album sales and bundles, so just from streams he actually sold 50k, which is exactly the same as a great Chaos or slightly higher by like 2k. That kind of confused me. How has Ken Carson blown up so much and gone so mainstream, yet the numbers are the exact same?
I'm not gonna lie, the numbers are hella weird. He's got 5, 9, 7, 5, 5, 6, 10, 9, 6, 7, 6, 7. Oh my god. I mean, he's caught some like Black Rockstar, Trap Jump. But like the numbers aren't that crazy, or at least what I thought or expected for Ken, to be quite honest. Good, there was hype, but like there wasn't as much hype as there should have been for more chaos, in my opinion.
Now, a lot of people here started blaming the label for not doing enough promo or just calling Ken Carson lazy, because he actually said on the album like, I'm too lit, I don't need no promo, or something along those lines. Tell the label I don't need promo. Because when you think about it, the album was announced in January or even like December, I'm pretty sure. It was announced a couple months prior. I remember his manager announced it. But then, do you guys remember any memorable rollout? Any promo he did? I don't. Because at least for AGC, he had hyped up snippets. Whereas for this one, there wasn't as many viral snippets. That's what I think anyways. And I also think he got lazy with doing no features. Like, what is it with these Opium guys doing no features? They think they're too good. Because imagine on this, if he had Uzi, Yeet, I don't even know, like Future, Young Thug, I don't know who else, but you get the point. He could have made this a really cool project, but instead we have to listen to 20 Ray tracks. Now look, I'm digging into him, but realistically, this project hasn't affected his career at all. I would say it's similar to Yeet's Afterlife, where it was okay, none crazy, no hit songs, it's just okay, it's just like a filler album. However, with Yeet, after Afterlife, he dropped 2093, which went insane. But can Ken do that? Can his next album actually be something insane like 2093 was? Can he experiment? He said his next album is called The Experiment, but from the snippets he's been previewing, he previewed some snippets last week, and yeah, let me tell you, people were just clowning him. You already know the comments. He's dropping even more chaos. Let's go, more chaos on the way. So I'm not sure, is Ken capable of experimenting, developing a new sound? Because realistically, what has Ken's development been in his career? The only development he's had is he's gone from making hyperpop, high-pitched EDM songs, or you know, the beats were EDM, higher pitched, to making dark grungy beats. The experiment will make or break his career. With critics calling more chaos repetitive and redundant, Ken is really facing pressure to switch up his sound. Plus, another chaos album would be incredibly boring because I feel like he peaked that sound and we don't need more. If he makes a successful sound switch, I think the respect for Ken would go up crazily. But if it flops, people will start forgetting about Ken. Do you all agree? Again, this is a big issue. I think to be a successful artist, you need to be able to switch up your sound so people don't get bored. For example, Carti. Every project he comes with something new. Yeet, recently, after he dropped Afterlife, people are saying, oh, he's still dropping the same Benny X songs, it's boring. He came with 2093, and then after 2093, he dropped Dangerous Summer, where again, he switched up his sound, and now with Come and Go, he's got one of the highest streamed rap songs of the year. But is Ken even capable of experimenting? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments because I'm actually interested. Because if Ken drops his next album and it's just the same rage stuff, I don't think people are going to listen, because why would we listen to the same stuff? So yeah, overall, Ken still has a lot of potential. I think this album wasn't bad, it wasn't good, it was just like a filler, you know? So yeah, on to the next one, and I wish him the best. Now, on to Lone. When he first blew up and was introduced to us as the new Opium signee, he was this new, unique, underground artist with his own style and aesthetic. His breakthrough project, Broken Hearts, was very raw, with Lone on some songs literally sounding like he's trying to fit an entire paragraph into one line. Yeah, it was good and catchy. The oh yeah ad-libs, the different voices, high-pitched, raspy, and the whisper voice, the Clayco beats, it was so good. And I mean, it only continued to get better for Lone, as in 2022, he dropped his debut album as part of the Opium label, No Stylist, which literally had fans thinking he was better than Ken Carson, and really at that point in time, he was. Ken dropped X, a project full of generic rage songs. Personally, I thought it was cool, but I guess as a 20-track album, it's not the best in terms of replay value, whereas Lone, he dropped one of the greatest underground projects in recent times. No Stylist was also a rage project. However, it had a mix of different styles. You had the more aggressive songs such as Jet Lagged, Love My Gang and Fake Fellas, whilst also having some more chill songs such as Crystal Castles, On the Floor and Swag School. It was the perfect mix of styles. And that's without talking about the deluxe, Never Ever, Blitz. It was just peak Lone. Then fast forward a year to when Lone dropped If Looks Could Kill. Lone went with this fashion horror aesthetic where he was this look killer, even dropping a short film as part of the rollout to the album. And before I actually get into the album, I must say Lone does an incredible job at building these themes and worlds around his albums, as it helps you get immersed into the album better. So If Looks Could Kill, this album did incredibly well. Going into the release, the song If Looks Could Kill was trending all over TikTok, and with the project having an incredibly long track list of 26 songs, Lone managed to sell 30,000 units in his first week, which was absolutely incredible. Lone went from barely charting on the Billboard 200 to selling a very impressive 30k. Now again, he did drop like 30 tracks, which I think inflated the numbers severely, but still, it was great. And then onto the actual music, I'd say very solid but also very repetitive. After the first 5 songs, all of them started to mesh together. If you want to fall asleep, put on this album and you'll be out in no time. And you know, I'm not even trying to clown this project because I feel like as individual tracks, they're not bad at all, but where I think Lone went wrong in this project was his lack of energy. You know, on most stylists, it was so energetic and hype, and instead of that on If Looks Could Kill, he was doing these generic trap flows and vocals instead. Very monotone and boring. All those crazy, unique and versatile flows we heard on Broken Hearts on No Stylist were gone. Look at this post I found a couple months after the project released. If Looks Could Kill aged horribly. I hear barely anyone talking about it anymore, and it's only a couple of months old. The stupidly long track list means you can't really go back to listen to it as a project, so it's more of a playlist album. There's obviously several good tracks on it, but do people actually still go back to listen to the filler? And I've held the exact same opinion on the project ever since it released. Like, the songs aren't bad, but it's just when there's 26 of them and there isn't a large selection of flows, beats, vocal styles, it gets boring quickly. Then moving into 2024, Love Lasts Forever. This was a really important project for Lone. Ken had just dropped AGC, which was a huge moment, sending him right into the mainstream spotlight, selling 50k from solely streams and even getting a Drake cosign. So with Lone's last project receiving a lot of mixed reviews and his Opium duo soaring out of the underground, he had a lot to prove. But the year wouldn't start off great. He would get into a silly beef with the streamer Bruce Dropper Moth after he posted this vlog of him where they had a dispute whether Lone said or gave him permission to film. His ex-girlfriend would expose him for being violent, where she would also expose him for calling Don Toliver gay and something to do with Lucky, and then he would actually go on to beef Lucky and would also get into some issues with Yeet. Either a terrible attempt at bringing attention to his name or just a series of unfortunate events. Oh, and it was also announced that the terrorist Lil 88 would be executively producing the project, and let's just say this producer isn't actually best known for his production. Instead, he's known for tweeting dumb stuff. I would say this was the worst time in Lone's career. If you went under the comments on a post related to him, you know, I'll play a clip in a second, but I was watching one of my old videos on my commentary channel about him, and I showed this tweet. I think it was Kuriko. They posted a Lone snippet, and in the comments it was like, no one cares, we're not listening to Lone, yabba yabba yabba. And even when he posted like a picture of him and his girlfriend, they were saying like, why is this dude so ugly, why is his face so bloated? The replies we got, we won't be there. So much for taking a break to focus on production and a new sound. Lil 88 hi-hats in 2025. He can keep this I don't care. Sounds like every other song on Love Lasts Forever. Destroy Lonely threatens to drop new music. Whereas now if you compare that to 2025, people are glazing him. F that hoe for me 5. And they're saying Lone's like this, you know, super good looking guy. And I think it's crazy how in 2024, I thought his career was over. Then in 2025, people are now back to glazing him. But I'll get onto that later. Anyways, eventually on the 30th of August in 2024, Love Lasts Forever would drop. And by the name of the project, you would expect it to be love themed, right? Well, no. Apparently it was supposed to be love themed at first, but I'm pretty sure because Lone got into the altercation with his girlfriend, I think he switched it up. And instead it seemed like Lone was trying his hardest to fit the theme of a generic Atlanta trap artist. Let me read you some people's comments of when the album dropped. Most boring effing production ever. No one is listening to him for what he says, so when the beats are just trash like they are for 90% of this album, what's the point in listening? At least with A Flux Had Kill, there was some interesting production, but with this, it's just the same trash hi-hats that are literally exactly the same for the first 7 tracks, with some weak 808s over a generic melody. Also, is Lil 88 the same guy who ruined Sydney Sweeney on A Great Chaos Deluxe? Because if so, man, this guy is trash. Bro, this album really cemented that Ken surpassed Lone in my opinion. He literally washed Lone in his own song. I still think Lone has way more potential, but he keeps putting out these 25+ song albums that are half filler. Ken has the ability to put together concise and more sonically better albums than Lone. I used to like Lone more than Ken, but he just can't put an album together for the life of him, man. Then one more, dude's dropped like 5 albums since Carti dropped his last one, with each one getting progressively worse. I mean, I could keep going. Now, call me crazy, but I don't think this album was that bad. There were some good songs such as Cadillac, Lock In, Doubt It, Honestly, and even some of the deluxe songs such as Make a Sound and Bounce are great. But again, that's out of like 30 tracks. A couple good songs out of 30 tracks, that's not a really good ratio. Most of these songs are generic trap filler. My biggest question to Lone is, how did you go from such a unique, creative and experimental rapper to this boring, nonchalant, generic trap artist? Just like, what went through your mind? You literally had the underground in a chokehold, because this is all me without delving into his 2021, 2020 SoundCloud drops and unreleased stuff also. He was the one, and now he just sounds like Future from Temu.
This just wasn't that great. I'm sorry to tell you. Like, I feel like Lone was supposed to be a prodigy, but now we are seeing that Ken Carson, and I did this too, so I'm not blaming anybody. Like, I thought Lone was supposed to be the prodigy and he was going to surpass Ken and he was going to be more mainstream. He has a more mainstream of his sound. And even to this day, he probably does. But like Ken, I don't know. He just has a distinct thing.
And I've seen people saying like, oh, he said he can't do the same voices because he's smoking too many cigs now. But you know, he can still do some cool flows and I guess he could try some stuff with his voice. You know, it's just really boring now. Anyways, the project will still perform well, I guess. 37.5 units in its first week. However, remember that he dropped 2 deluxes, which added over 10 tracks plus all the merch, vinyl, CDs, you get the point. He sold 18,500 from actual streams, then the other 19,000 from bundles. Very inflated numbers, but every artist are these days, so I don't even blame him. Now, moving into 2025, onto Broken Hearts 3. And look, everyone watching this, can you guys help me out? From what I've seen on social media, the opinions are split. Some are calling this the best Lone project in a long time, whilst others are saying it's just the same stuff but released under a cooler, nostalgia baiting aesthetic. Like, I can't tell if people actually like this project or it's just the labels have bought out all the big Twitter pages to glaze it, creating an echo chamber I can't escape. And it's created like this kind of sheep mentality where if the big Twitter pages put out good tweets about it, then all the fans like glaze it because, you know, sheep mentality, you have to like what's popular. My personal opinion on this project, the production is better. Songs like Jumanji, No Pressure and So High are cool, but to me, it's exactly the same stuff we heard on Love Lasts Forever. Boring and uninspired flows, even the song with Ken. Every Lone and Ken song is a banger, but this one was straight ass. I think this album is worse than Love Lasts Forever, maybe on par. I think the production was slightly better on this album, but of course, that's because it had Cody on it. I think he did the majority, whereas Love Lasts Forever had Lil 88. And yeah, I don't think I need to explain that. Oh, and the sales. 15k first week, which compared to Love Lasts Forever, which sold 18.5, that's a 3.5k drop, selling lower than Ian's debut EP. And funny enough, Osamason dropped Psychotic as I'm recording this video, or he dropped it like 2 days ago, and they actually did the exact same streams on the first day. Now, bear in mind, Lone is signed to Carti, had a Ken feature, and had like, you know, billboards promoting his album, whereas Osamason, he's basically like an underground SoundCloud rapper with just a Che feature, not signed to a major artist. Imagine if Osamason had a Ken feature, an Uzi feature, a Yeet feature, he's out streaming Destroy Lonely. I'm just keeping it real. Now look, I still think Lone has potential. I just don't understand why he makes this boring trap music.
The whole album, I really feel like I just wish that he could give more, you know? I always feel like with Destroy Lonely, my biggest like gripe is just that like you're not giving enough. That's it. I know you can, or I think he can. I think it's possible. I just need more performance wise. That's it. You know, more energy, more intensity. You know what I'm saying? I'm not necessarily, when I say vicious on the beat, I don't really mean it in like a aggressive kind of way, but just more, You know what I'm saying? More confidence, more presence, you know? More control. You know, I feel like the beat sometimes get away from him, and it's like, not to say it's doing its own thing, but it's just barely being driven by him. You know what I'm saying? He's in the car, but he also isn't driving, if that makes any sense. Like it very much so it feels like a song, or it feels like a vehicle that will be moving on its own without a driver. You get what I'm saying? And that's how I feel about most of the music here. Even though that Destroy Lonely is still a good placeholder, he still feels like a placeholder, and it feels like he's waiting for somebody more important to come in and lay their verse down.
Like for example, Jumanji, the flow, the voice, the beat, it actually interests me. It makes me want to listen. It's right in your face. Now I'm not saying Lone has to constantly make these like almost rage slop songs, but please try and make an album that doesn't make me want to fall asleep. And that's before I get into people glazing the transitions. That's what I saw people like praising the album for. Transitions are not a good thing. I don't need an additional 30-second intro and outro on every single song. Transitions are cool for like a producer album like Pierre, but for Destroy Lonely, I don't care. And it's like, that's not even Destroy Lonely's work. He just told his producer to do that. So shout out to Cody. Yeah, honestly, I don't have too much to say about Broken Hearts 3 because it simply did not interest me at all. Overall, I just don't understand why Lone went with the sound he did. I'm not one of these people that are nostalgia merchants and say, oh, I miss old Lone. Why doesn't he sound like old Lone? Because it's obvious he won't sound the same every year. But it's just a direction he went with. He didn't use the styles people liked and knew him for, and instead went for styles that basically nerfed him. So the real question is what's next for Opium? Now some people are probably going to expect me to talk about Homicide Gang or Apollo Red in this video, but realistically those guys aren't ever going to make it. Homicide Gang are these kind of, you know, they're not even really rappers. Carti signed them just to have like street affiliations. Their first two projects, Snotty World and Homicide Lifestyle 1, that was good, but the rest, yeah, it wasn't too great. And then Apollo Red, he's just unoriginal and terrible. Anyways, Ken Carson and Destroy Lonely. Call me crazy, but what if they took a year break and in 2026 they just dropped an Opium Twins tape? Like a 10-track, 12-track EP? It doesn't have to be all collab songs, they can have also solo songs on there too. I guess like what Drake and Party Next Door did for Some Sexy Songs for You. I mean, that was like a 20-track album, but you know, let's say Ken and Lone do 10 tracks, 3 solo tracks each, and then like a couple duo songs, and maybe even like a feature from Carti or Future or Uzi. Because I feel like a big issue these days is every rapper has to put out a 20-something track album every single year, plus singles, plus all the features. It's so much music. And unfortunately, I don't think these artists are good enough to be dropping albums every single year because their sound doesn't change that much. Again, not to glaze Yeet, but he's really good at changing his sound. Like Up To Me and Too Alive were these kind of more so of rage albums, yet they had their own distinct sound. Afterlife wasn't really a rage album, it was more these spacey Benny X beats. And then 2093, that was a completely different thing. And then Dangerous Summer, again a brand new sound that we haven't heard before. And I think Dangerous Summer was a really good move for Yeet. Just a little EP, people didn't care about the sales, they didn't care about the performance, they just cared about the music. And it worked. So should Ken and Lone maybe drop an Opium Twins EP or just drop EPs on their own? Now Lone did that with the little EPs he dropped on SoundCloud, and the first one he dropped with Smoke Some Drinks on Pop One, the sample one, that EP was good, but then that sound, I don't think it carried over to Broken Hearts 3, because I thought that EP was good, but then Broken Hearts 3 wasn't as good, and then he dropped another EP on SoundCloud after Broken Hearts 3, and I didn't really like any of those either. So yeah, do Opium need to drop another 25-track album? I don't think so. I don't want to hear another Destroy Lonely album unless he severely changes his sound, and same with Ken Carson, because it's just going to be the same stuff that really we've heard before. Drop an EP, maybe take a year break. I think Ken could drop like a Lost Files 5, but drop it officially on Spotify. Just give us like 10 tracks, give us something new, something for the fans, and some experimental stuff that maybe could go mainstream. So yeah, let me know guys' thoughts in the comments below. Again, I don't think Opium are like finished and they're falling off, but I think the whole hype and gimmick is over. Like we get it, you're mysterious and edgy, but can we get some good music now? Because the whole Rage era, it's kind of boring now, you know? But yeah, let me know guys' thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next one.